and then connecting to. Hi team, so we've got quite a few people that are trying to register in and join in. So we're just going to let them do that over the next couple of minutes while we start to get ready. So welcome, thank you for joining us. And if you want to take your, I realized that I also accidentally switched on the do not put your video on. If you want to do your video, please feel free to add your video. I didn't mean to switch that off, and just make sure that you're muted so that it's just Jono and myself. Hi, thank you for joining us. And yeah, so we'll get started in just a few minutes, and yeah, we'll just let a few people connect. I've had quite a few people texting me saying I'm coming, so hopefully they will log in. And yeah, we'll get started in a few minutes. This is kind of when I really need to have my Pink Floyd money music going on. I have to see if I can make that happen. I never have figured out how to have that going. So
it is beyond me too, Jules, but I do have a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old, and they are phenomenal.
awesome. So make sure you've got your cup of tea ready, your glass of water, and we'll just get started probably in 2 minutes, when everybody that says that they're trying to jump on, can jump on. Welcome everybody that's joining in. If you want to use your camera, you can. If you don't want to, that's okay as well. But yes, just get yourself nice and comfortable. We're just waiting for a couple more people to join us. And I haven't been smart, and those that are joining us, I haven't been tech smart enough to figure out how to get our money song going, so that you can hear it. The good news is I can hear it, but I don't think it's coming on the radio for you guys, like on the Zoomy.
For us, that might work.
Yes. Nobody wants me to sing, Jono. I'm the queen calculator for a reason, and you're the money man for a reason. It doesn't say that I am the new Taylor Swift. Okay, right. So it's 4:35, and I'm just going to get started. Right. So let me share my camera and then put it in present mode. So I want to welcome you all to our Smart Directors series. And this week we're talking about how to unlock wealth and harness your business cash with the one and only Jonathan Mannon our money man. He's our financial advisor, certified financial planner. He's got a Bachelor of Commerce in Economics, one of my favorite subjects. And he's also a member of the Financial Advice Association. So today we're just going to go through a few things, but I thought, Jono, I'll reach out to you to say, why are we here? What do you do, and what do you hope as our intention for what business owners that are on our webinar today might get out of today's session?
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So I much prefer Jai rather than Jonathan. My mum calls me Jonathan, as does my wife when I've done something wrong. But I think the big thing for me today is I've been an advisor for, well, it's not quite 20 years, but it's not a long way off. And it's been providing advice to businesses and business owners for about nearly 12 of those years. And a lot of the things that I see is that we get so, as business owners, because I own and operate my own practice as well, we get so focused on the business that sometimes we lose sight of the fact that business, yes, we want to look after our customers and clients and we want to build a great business, but effectively the business is there to look after us. And you didn't buy yourself a job. It's more than that. And there's some fantastic things that you can do. If you take that view of your business as it's there to look after you, and it's there to grow wealth for you and your family, not just your generation, but potentially generation or generations further down, there's some really good stuff we can do. And particularly when we start working with business owners who haven't necessarily taken, quite often it's focused sort of inwards and in on business. But when you step back and have a look at it and go, oh, yeah, okay, so these are the things that we can do. We've seen some massive changes and shifts in behavior, in business success. And there's a whole series of knock-on effects. So once the business is more successful, customers and clients are happier. It's sort of that virtuous cycle. So that's the bit that floats my boat. That makes me happy, puts a big smile on my face, because I love seeing my clients win.
Yeah, awesome. And I think that's why we love working with each other so much, because that is a common goal for both of us. But let us know just a little bit. So why are you, like, tell us a little bit about your history and like your background, because I know, like we oftentimes say so many financial advisors, they, you know, they might be driving around in a shitbox car or something like that. So tell me about your background and how you started Sanjunction Wealth, and yeah.
So for me, I grew up in a small business family. I'm now the third generation to have my own business. But I grew up working sort of in and around Dad's business. Sweeping floors in the factory was how I started. It was much, much less glamorous than I had in mind. But that was, the entrepreneurial mindset was there from a very, very young age. And then I went over to the UK, got into, just by sheer luck, and I think being 21 is, real bravado. Managed to get my way into banking and finance, and I managed to find my way sort of to the pointier end, in what I still consider to be the tippity top of the banking sort of the pointy end, which is Goldman Sachs, and I loved it. Super, very long hours, lots of pressure, some really smart people, and the progression for me was either up into the trading desks, stock lending, or was out to the hedge funds, because the hedge funds were my clients. And it was very smart stuff, and it was exciting. And I got this opportunity to meet the person that I could become. And I walked away from that meeting and went, I'm out.
Yeah, wow.
I could see, he was an incredibly powerful, influential guy, lots of money, was working 12, 14, 16-hour days. He had a driver. You can see that's where the career progression was going in the next
Yeah.
sort of 30 odd years. And I came home and said to my wife, I'm out. I don't want to deal with those sort of people. I don't want to make obscenely wealthy people a little bit more money because they don't actually value it. And it was
Mm,
at that point that we were moving to Australia because she wanted to come home. And it was one of those bits where I went, right, I've now spent 8 years in the pointy end of finance. How do I take all of that stuff that I've learned? There was a stint in Hong Kong, most of it was in London. Um, Clients out of the hedge fund piece, specifically in New York. How do I take all of that stuff and bring it home to people who are actually going to get value out of it? And it can actually make a difference.
mm,
And I started, sounds a bit sort of far-fetched, but I've got a couple of mates who are in private wealth management in Switzerland. Had a chat to them, spent some time with them, and that was when I discovered financial advice and went, that's me.
yeah,
That's
cool.
and
Cool.
then it was bringing it back into how do I look after people who are actually going to value it.
Yeah.
Um, and then, there's that progression of making sure that I'm really proficient, that I've done the study, that I'm actually, really, the core skill sets there. And now I've got all of that behind me. The entrepreneurial bit came in. I looked at a whole bunch of things that happened. It was actually during the Royal Commission. And I looked at it and went, ugh. You get this awful sick feeling in the pit of your stomach to see this stuff, um,
Mm,
things done in a certain way. And I
mm.
went, I'm out. I will no longer work in anywhere that's got those sort of conflicts. How do I solve that problem? Start my own business.
Yeah,
That was sort
amazing.
of the genesis of Sandring Wealth.
Amazing. Amazing. So, how are we going to help business owners today? So, like, we talked about the foundation of investment earlier, and how to create wealth. So, do you want to get started on maybe what the foundation of investment is through your business?
So there are three sort of key steps and areas that I love to see
Mm,
business owners hit. And the first one is cash flow. Because the more cash flow there is and the better we use it, it just gives you the ability and a whole range of choices that you may not have had in the past.
mm-hmm.
Um, then it's looking to, the core business is going to do its thing, and that's sort of your ticket to the game. That is how everything comes together, and then it's how you use that cash flow. So second step is normally the generation of passive income because it's looking beyond the business to you and your family and saying, right, how do we start baby steps to just get that stuff ticking along? And then the third step, not every business owner gets there, but the step that it really is a game changer is the self-sufficiency and effectively using the assets of your business effectively to become your own bank. When
Mm,
you no longer have to go and ask the bank for a mortgage, it's an incredibly powerful place.
yeah, amazing.
Were there bits and pieces
Amazing.
that you wanted
So,
to add to or subtract from that?
yeah, well, let's start with like cash flow. So what are your hot tips about improving cash flow? Why is it so important? And and how do you measure it and keep an eye on it?
The number one thing for me is actually knowing what's coming in and what's going out. And the number of business owners that I'll sit down with and go, right, talk me through your cash flow in the business. And there's sort of
Mm,
this awkward pause, and you had to talk to my accountant. No, your accountant is a wonderful, wonderful person to support and guide, but you have to be in control.
yeah.
And one of the things that I'll do, I do it on an annual basis, is I start the calendar year every year. Things are a little bit quieter, and I go through and I look for waste and duplication. And I really,
Okay,
really,
so what's that? So hang on, back it up. Waste and duplication. Talk about that. Tell me what you're looking for specifically.
so specifically, I'm going through and saying, right, a lot of the stuff that I'm looking for is tech based. So I'll look through and go, right,
Mm,
I've got this, software, I've got the tech stack, and I
mm,
basically not print out, but I put on Excel, there's my tech stack. this is what it does and this is what it costs. And actually, this year was a really good example because I looked at it and went, okay, things like booking software, that's cool. I got a great system. It's integrated.
Hmm.
Microsoft, I'm already paying for the suite of Microsoft, but it'll do the same thing. I've
Yeah.
got this sort of niche bit of software. It turns out Microsoft can do that as well. And I went through and went, right, well, I can get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Now, this year was actually, I was a bit, I came a little bit short of my mark, but I saved $9,958 for the year for
Yeah.
just getting rid of duplication.
Yeah. And
And
that's a quick win. And like that's probably the first thing that I do in every single business. And I go, hey, did you know that you've got all these things and this is what all the software stack does? And I love that you do that in January because that's usually my January thing too. So yeah, it's always a quick win. You can always find easily like between 5 and 10 grand, I think, in your business every year, just
I
in
was,
just in the tech stack.
and that's it.
Like,
I was 42
yeah,
bucks for 10 grand, and I went, I get really excited about that because it means
yeah,
that I can spend the 10 grand on either something else in the business or there's 10 grand's, extra profit. Um,
mm,
about. But there was some really small, I launched a book last year. And one of the
hmm,
things when I went onto Amazon, it automatically signed me up to whatever the TV
that
Prime.
sell thing is, yeah, Prime. Oh
And
yes, oh my God,
yes, and
that's so
I
cheeky.
cancelled it.
Yeah,
But there were something like, I can't even remember how many sort of Amazon Prime entries there were. Got hold of them and, hey, can you make this disappear? No problem. Done.
yeah,
So, there are bits and pieces that, those quick wins, 10 grand's a really good start to the year. And it puts you in a position where you go, well, what am I going to use that 10 grand for in the business? How am I going to make things better, faster, uh,
yeah.
smarter?
Give yourself a pay increase for 10 grand. Boom, just like that. Because there are some business owners that don't have the ability to pay themselves the wage that they used to be able to get when they were in the corporate world, for example. So yeah, so those kind of things are always really a real good win. So what
So
else are you looking for?
that's excellent.
Duplication.
So duplication, the other two, my three biggest costs are staff, tax, and rent.
Hmm.
Can't do much around the staff side of things because I've got good people and we look after them salary wise. But the tax and the rent, a strategy that I love to see, not only does it, so if we look at the pure financial stuff, we can reduce the tax, get effectively a tax effective kickback on the rent.
Hmm.
But the third sort of benefit to that is that it shifts the feeling inside the business. So this bit here, I'm talking about if you're renting premises, it's actually buying your own premises for the business. People
Yeah.
even go, oh, I don't have enough cash sort of lurking on the sidelines to be able to do that. But one of the ways that we do it is looking at using your super.
Yes.
And I mean, you and I have done this for clients
Mm,
before, but
mm,
it makes me so happy because once you go, once there's enough in super and you start to make use of self-managed super funds, you can get, I mean, I've done it here. The
mm.
office here, my super fund put down the deposit and bought the premises. I now rent from my own super fund. And that's a really
Yes.
powerful because I know that from the super fund's point of view, I've got a great tenant. I'm in control of what the rent is. And particularly when the profit starts to get up in the business, I don't necessarily want all of that there. There are ways
Mm,
you might potentially just lift the rent a little bit to look after your super fund while still looking after your business. But you
yeah.
also get, I mean, you know the strategy, but once you're renting from your super fund, it's a beautiful strategy because in small business land, we get tax at 25%. So we get to claim our rent as a deduction at 25%.
Hmm.
But when it's received in the super fund only pays 15%. So we get
That's
a
a good
50%
win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You get 10% of the business's rent as like a free kick.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of free kicks when it comes to the tax side of things.
Mm,
So that
yeah.
it's particularly when you look at that and go, right, what am I going to do with if your rent was 50, 60, 70 grand a year, what am I going to do with the extra 5, 6, 7 grand that
Mm,
literally is there courtesy of the taxman?
yeah.
But the big shift that I've seen, particularly when we've got clients who own businesses and they're renting premises, there is an element of instability because you don't know if the lease comes up and you're going to get to renew, even if you've got a 3 by 3, whatever the terms are, stuff can change. I mean, it happened to
Mm,
me. So we bought the offices nearly 3 years ago. I'd been renting premises for 3 years. I could see it coming and had a chat to the landlord and went, hey, what's the deal? You don't need all this space. I'm not
yeah.
taking it all up. What are we talking?
What are you gonna do? Yeah.
And they said, no, 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 we're all good. And it was about 2 months after that, they came in and went, it's not that
See you
good.
later.
And we
Yeah.
got 3 months to move business. Now, in a business
Mm,
like mine, it's relatively easy to move.
yeah.
Certainly, we've got clients who run gyms, personal training. You can't just pick that business up and move. Uh,
Mm,
so there's some really good stuff. So once you own your own premises and you've got certainty over where you operate from, it's sort of planting that flag on the ground going, we live here. And it
yes.
shifts things within the business. So,
Yeah.
when you add tax efficiency and control over your rent and certainty for the business, that's a really, really good strategy for the here and now. And I love starting there, but a little
Mm,
bit further on, particularly, when you come time to retire, if you wanted to sell the business, if you're in accumulation phase of super, well, then you're going to pay, as long as you've held it for over 12 months, you're going to pay 10% capital gains tax at a maximum. Now that
oh
certainly,
wow.
yeah, I mean, you think about, if you've got commercial premises, if I hold it in my own name or in my family trust, or even in a company, my tax
Yeah,
rate, yeah,
it can be quite expensive. Yeah.
but capital gains tax in accumulation phase is 10%. If you were to go into pension phase first and then sell the premises, zero.
Mm,
There is not a dollar's worth of capital gains. Now we've just done that with a client. He and his wife own a commercial premises they ran an education business out of. They had a $4 million capital gain,
hmm.
not a dollar's worth of tax.
Amazing.
That's
Amazing. That's
fantastic.
like that's just amazing. Like that's and like imagine imagine making $4 million and not needing to pay tax because it's been structured correctly up front. That's phenomenal. Like so and that's a long-term vision for quite a few of our clients. So let's back it up a little bit. What if I'm starting out and like how much kind of superannuation should I be putting in? Should I be focusing like as an individual, should I be focusing on making sure I have a home and then, putting some super away or like talk to me about that first initial piece and how you're going to get that out of your business.
So two bits. If we talk about should we own a home first or second,
Mm,
renting versus owning, you get two very different things. From renting, you get flexibility.
yes.
You've got much less sort of pressure on your cash flow, which means that you can actually redirect more to the business. For me personally, starting the business up 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was, I
Mm,
have a family. There is no way,
mm,
for me, the priority was family needs to
yeah.
know where they're going to live. I don't need flexibility because if I went home and went, surprise, we're going to move, I would get poked in the eye. So it's
So it
working.
really depends on your circumstances, is what you're telling me. So,
Do you
yeah.
want flexibility that comes with renting,
Mm,
or do you want the stability that comes with owning a home?
mm,
In terms of how much should you put into super, I mean, in 2 months' time, around about 2
Yep.
months, we're going to go to 12% super. So
Yes.
start there. But the
Yep.
question, should you put more into super or not, really comes down to cash flow, what the impact is. Um, there are scenarios where we've just literally done some advice for somebody now where they were making a $350 a week salary sacrifice contribution, and I said, cancel it. You can just stop it
Mm.
because
Mm.
you're not getting bang for buck there. We can do different things with the cash flow.
Mm.
But in terms of how much do you need in super before you can start to make really good use of it, it's going to depend on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to buy a commercial shed for a trade business, for example, and you're going to pick that up for, 4 to 500 grand, you probably only need 100, 150 in there to make it viable. But you've got to match the intent with
Mm.
starting capital. So if somebody came to me and said, John, I've got 150 grand, I will want to start a self-managed super fund. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's got to be the intention. Yeah. And that's one piece that I think a lot of people get sucked into. They might go to the pub and they have a chat with somebody that's got a super fund, like self-managed super fund, and they think, oh, this is my fast way to making cash. None of anything that we're talking about is overnight making money, right? So we're talking longer term strategies, consistency, and excellent cash flow. Would that be fair? Mm.
It is. It's 100%
Mm.
right. So none of the things that we do are going to double overnight or halve overnight because if you're looking for those quick wins, the moonshot stuff, you're going to end up losing. That stuff can work, but it might work 1 out of 15, 1 out of 20 times, which means you're
Mm.
using 14 out of 15, and I don't love that. But if you look at buying within the super fund, if you were buying a home for the business wins, but your super fund wins as well. Because
Mm.
I look at the yield on this place, it's about 7%. It's probably stayed reasonably static.
Mm.
For the last 3 years, even though we've had rates going up and down, it's
Mm.
reasonably static. But I'm really comfortable with the 7% yield because long term, there's some really good benefits. But you're right, it's not, the start of self-managed super fund is going to solve all of my financial problems. It's going to create them,
Mm.
not using it.
Yeah. Yeah. I oftentimes say that it's the fastest way to jail. If you don't, like, if you don't do it properly. And doing investment strategies like crypto and things like that in your super fund, as a self-managed super fund, maybe is not the highlights, or if that's what you want to do,
No, I
that's
mean,
not what we're talking about either.
to be honest, I step away from. So if somebody says I've got
Mm.
crypto in my super fund, I'm out. I literally just
Yes, same.
I walk
I
away.
go, sorry, you need to find somebody else because, yeah, because it's in the super fund in particular. It's yeah, the self-managed super fund side of things. Um, the rules are so strict. So you want to use it mainly for purpose. Now, I know that there's other regulated super funds that allow you to choose your types of super. And we're getting a little bit digressing, but maybe a quick chat on that as well, because there's some people I know that are like, oh, I don't like the bog standard super funds, the regulated super funds. I want to have a bit more control. That's still an option too, right? Without having to get a full blown self managed super fund.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a self-managed super fund because when we came over from the UK, the only way that I could get uh, the money across was to have it dual regulated here and in the UK. You don't need that anymore. If I wasn't using it for the
Mm.
commercial premises and the things that we were doing,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have it. So there's a spectrum of complexity and cost. So down the bottom end of complexity and cost. I mean, we use them. There are a couple of industry funds that do a fantastic job, keep things really nice and simple, and you can go industry fund. Self-managed super fund is right up the top end in terms of cost and complexity, and you can put almost anything you can poke a stick out in there. So the weirdest stuff that I've seen in self-managed super funds, because you're in control of what's in there, was a freeze-dried yak. Still, I wasn't 100% sure what the valuation, how you value a freeze-dried yak, but that was in there, and there was a $30,000 second-hand push bike. So that's the weirder end, but you're looking for fit for purpose. And then there's a middle ground, which has really sort of been bolstered probably in the last decade, where if you said, I want some shares, I want to get quite specific on what I'm looking for investment-wise. So we've had a series of clients who said, look, I want industrial property, but I just don't really have enough money. Well, there are ways to invest in industrial property without having to buy an individual property.
An individual shed. Yeah.
So
amazing.
You can actually have that spectrum all the way through, but self-managed super funds, it has when you need it.
Yeah, cool. So that's a quick little delve into self-managed super funds and normal like regulated funds. But let's get back on track to like business. So the main reason why I wanted to talk briefly about the super is because that's one of the investment strategies that we want from businesses by owning our own business is how to get more money into super so that we can buy an investment property down the track. So what are some of our other options that are available to us to really harness the cash that's in our business to be generating wealth? Like what if I'm 3-4 years before I get to the point where I can even contemplate buying my own property through the cash flow of my business? What are the steps that I need to be taking now to like on top of improving our cash flow and all that? What are those steps that I need to be taking now to be a bit more proactive?
If you say, look, my goal here is to buy the property, then you want to have a look at what's the profit, what deposit do you need, add some extra on for stamp duty and all the rest of it, and increase in property prices. But like I'm a fan of sort of setting myself a target and then knocking it over. Now, if you set your target right, so that big, it gets too big and it's unachievable. But if you say, right, it's that big, and in fact, in 4 years' time, I need to do that. There are 48 months in that period. All I need to focus on is just this month. That's all. I can do that. And once I've done that, then it's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Because if you have to jump, 2 meters high, you're just not going to do it. But if you can run up stairs that are 10 centimeters high, you can do that.
Yeah, anybody can do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and it might be one of those things where you go, okay, well, that's what I'm shooting for. The property thing isn't for everybody. So you might look at it and say, actually, I don't, or I'm really comfortable. I've got a fantastic landlord. I know there's certainty and stability. Actually, I want the profit of the business. I don't want to take it all as cash flow for me personally because my tax rate's going to go through the roof. What else can I do with it? So one of the ways I don't love to see money retained inside the business because it puts at risk. If we've got a trading business here and we've got investment assets here, the two mixed, and I don't love that. I love that separation. Because if anything goes wrong in the business, you go.
I'm going to put that in the car park separation. Yes, so continue so that we can come back to that because that's a key point.
Yeah, so the separation piece is first and foremost, and then we've isolated and protected the profit. And it probably goes into the family trust or into a bucket company. But what I see a lot is clients coming to me going, hey Jono, I don't really know what to do. In fact, a guy came in and he had a 7-figure chunk and he said, I don't really know what to do with this. My accountant says that when I retire, that's my replacement salary. And I got really upset because I said, how much interest are you earning? And he went, I don't know. I said, open your bank account and show me. And he
Yeah.
opened it and he went, oh, 0.01%. I said, okay, we've got some problems. But, that
Mm.
as a starting point, you can generate phenomenal passive income. And
Mm.
again, it's that same thing. If you said, I want to live on a couple of grand a week or whatever it is, you don't want to try and get yourself to a point where you're generating $104,000 worth of passive income because it's just so big. You
Yeah.
want to split that up into 1 week at a time. So
Yeah.
my goal at the moment is to generate enough profit to generate $2,000 in the year worth of passive income. That's the first week of January. I can
Yes.
do that.
Yeah.
And when the first week of January is done, I'm looking at the second week of January, and then the third and the fourth.
Yeah.
And once you get that sort of snowball rolling, by the time you get to August in your passive income sort of world domination piece, it is so much easier because you've got 7 months worth of other income starting to lift you up.
Mm.
But it also puts you in this useful position of saying, you know, what am I going to do? What am I working for? I'm working for the first week of June. What do I need to do? I need to lift the profit. Now I sat down with a couple. It was a little bit like marriage counselling because there was some tension.
Yes.
And one of the things that they said is they said, "Oh, we're stuck." And when you're not stuck. We just haven't made a decision. What's your average customer? What's your average size? And they said it's $3,000. And I said, okay, what happens if you put your prices up by 5%? I said, it's not that much. It was like $150. You are not going to lose and they said, oh, it's very competitive. I said, it may be, but it's not $150. It's not going to make the difference between
Yeah.
you're in or you're out.
Mm.
And I went,
Yeah.
well, why would we do that? And I said, business turnover, let's say it increases by 5%. Your costs haven't increased. That uplift in
Yes.
profit just did August and September for you in terms of passive income.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
burst into tears.
Yeah.
And it was that, it's one of those things he'd been holding in there so tight. And
Yeah.
his frustration was partly with himself and not being able to articulate it. And he looked at her and he said, this is what I've been trying to tell you.
Figure out.
And she
Yeah.
said, well, you didn't tell me. And you could see they'd both been worried about the same thing, but didn't have
Yeah.
words for it.
Yeah.
For
And I
them,
think is yeah, and sorry, I think as well, like that 1%, um, that is the the most underutilized adjustment that I see in business. I see so many business that have been charging the same per hour price if they're doing it by hourly or the same widget price for years. And then you come in and you start ratcheting it up by 1%, 2%, 3%, 5%. And that additional 5%, you've not changed anything other than brought yourself more income. And it also demonstrates to your customers that, you're being price competitive, you're not undervaluing yourself. So definitely, like if anybody here has not put up their prices by a couple of percent, like you're coming up to end of financial year, get it done. That's your top priority because, like you say, a small adjustment like that, a percentage adjustment, can have such a huge uplift. Um,
and it's really
and it's easy. Like it's really easy. Like yeah. So it's perfect.
and it was powerful to link what, because her question was, why would we do it? And I
Mm.
literally watched the penny drop for her, and she just went, ah. And
Mm-hmm.
she got annoyed with him because she said, you didn't tell me. And he went, I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
articulate it. And
yeah,
sometimes it's that process of sitting down with somebody else where there's
yeah,
no emotion involved for me. It's
yeah.
really, but it's linking, if we do this, you're going to get that. It was
Mm.
so powerful. Uh,
Mm.
But it's again, it's stripping that profit out, protecting it, putting it in the right place, and then we're actually investing that.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of choice at the moment, particularly for them. We're still growing it. So I don't want to see big dividends or big rental yields. I just want it to grow.
Mm.
When we get to the point where we say, okay, we're now thinking about retirement, you can shift that investment mix to go, okay, well, now we want to see those dividends coming through. We want to see the franking credits. We want to reduce the tax. There's some really good stuff that you can do, but it's taking that really big, sort of hairy, scary, I want passive
Mm.
income for the rest of my life, and bring it
Mm.
back to, we're going to do, instead of 52 weeks, we're only going to do 1 week.
Yeah. It's easy. Yeah. So I'm hearing manageable chunks, go through your easy wins on your costs and increase your prices. So that's our three hot tips so far. Now you talked about, and I've written it down, separation of asset and risk. This is, one of my biggest bugbears. So please, like, what does that mean to somebody that is, starting out in business? Why is it important not to put everything in a company or, God forbid, a sole trader? Like if you're trading as a sole trader, please definitely book in a meeting with me because we need to have a conversation. But yes,
So
why is it
the
important to separate?
we go
Mm.
right back to the core sort of principle. What is the business there to do? Yes, look after customers and clients, but it's there to look after you and your family. You
Yes.
aren't just doing a job, you've taken on the risk, you've committed your time and capital, and it's this big sort of backing of yourself. And because you do that, you want to be rewarded. But there is risk, and the risk is that something happens in the business, um, something goes wrong, and you don't want to take 10 years worth of profit and see something go wrong in the business, and then you lose. Not only do you lose the business, but you lose 10 years worth of profit. I've seen it happen,
Mm. Mm.
and it's awful. Sometimes it is business related stuff. Sometimes it's being in business with people that you didn't appreciate what maybe their moral compass
Mm.
was saying. But once
Mm.
you've made the profit, the business has done what it's done, or what it needed to do is fulfill its intention for your family. So bring that out and away from the business and put it somewhere safe. And if anything
Yeah.
happens to the business, you've still got all of the reward for your hard work and for taking
Yes.
risk, for backing yourself into your own business.
Yeah. Cool. So, yeah, keep the profits out of the
Absolutely.
trading entity and keep the the real property out of the trading entity. And if you're trading as a company, make sure any other real property is protected from your efforts as
Yeah.
a company owner.
There's a couple of other
Cool.
there as well, particularly from the property point of view. When you buy an asset in your business name or in your own name, you're choosing from this day forward all of the benefits of that property from a financial point of view will go to this structure,
Yes.
this
Yeah.
company, or this person. And I don't love that. I want the
Mm.
ability, the flexibility to say, if I sell this and there's a capital gain, I want ideally to choose who that goes to. It doesn't
Mm.
always make sense for it to all come to me, because tax wise that might be awful. So you
Mm.
want to try and build in some of the flexibility, um, and there might be occasions where really you might want to hang on to the company, the real property, but sell the business. So you want to be able to separate and give yourself the flexibility and the choice to make different decisions. If I was to
Yeah.
sell the business, I don't have to sell the offices. If I sell the offices, I can still operate the business from there. So
Yes.
that sort of
Yeah.
flexibility is built in.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're building flexibility and risk management and not like what my grandma would say is putting all of your eggs in one basket. So always get really great advice on that kind of thing. Yeah, cool. So is there anything else that you think that we should talk about before we open the floor for people to ask you all of their wild questions when it
Yes,
comes to making money?
so particularly for my business-based clients, the first
Mm,
one is basically owning your own premises if we can.
mm,
Second one's passive income, but the third one, and not everybody gets there, but if you can, it is so powerful. But it's effectively becoming your own bank.
mm,
Effectively, the way that this operates, and I've actually got two clients that we started working with that have used it particularly well. When you've got the profit that's sitting, it's not in the trading entity. We've been mature and responsible. We stripped out that risk and we put it somewhere else. Let's say it's in a bucket company and it's just sitting in cash, because that's often where we start that conversation. It's saying, right, I've got a whole pile of cash over here. How am I going to use it? And I'll
mm.
give you a great example. It was a business owner. It was a seven-figure chunk that he, his accountant had sort of sidelined. And one of the things that he would get really worked up about, and he just so happened to have $1 million, let's call it a million, sitting in the cash account, and he had $1 million mortgage. And he's 4 years away from retirement. And he said, I said, just talk. Yeah, he's earning good income. We're touching
Yeah.
on sort of the 450 grand a year.
Mm,
And he said, John, my biggest frustration, worry, fear is my mortgage. I said,
mm.
why? And he said, there are 13 rate rises. I've got $1 million mortgage and it is going to kill me. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning going,
Yeah.
how on earth am I going to pay that thing off in 3 years? And effectively what we did was to take the money from the bucket company and lend it to him. So he has now
At a
borrowed the money from his company,
fixed rate. Yeah.
discharged the mortgage that he had with the bank. His company
Wow.
is now the bank.
Yeah.
I put the strategy to him, and he literally just burst into tears. Now, this is a
Yeah.
highly intelligent, very
Mm,
influential guy, incredibly smart. He's
mm.
all over everything all the time. And he burst into tears and he went, I'm just sick and tired of crying in front of you. But he goes, how did I not know
Yeah.
about this?
Yeah.
I said, it's not something that everybody knows about. And in fact, the way that
It's,
we structured it, he's actually not going to pay the whole thing off. And he said,
yeah.
well, what do I do with all of the spare cash now? And I went,
Yeah.
like, there's stuff that we can do with the spare cash, but
Yeah.
I want you to think about it and go, right, your mortgage is paid off. Now we're going to build the passive income over the following
Yes.
four
Yeah.
years. Add that to
Yeah.
your super, and it completely shifted. I don't think I've got as big an advocate as that guy. Every time we finish the call, he
Yeah.
goes, "Love you, buddy." But it's that it's tapping into what really worried him, and he went,
Yeah.
"I've this useless $1 million pile of cash here. I'm so
Yeah.
stressed out about my mortgage." One of the things he was actually considering was drawing all of the cash out, paying
Yeah.
$470,000 worth of tax to halve his mortgage.
Yeah.
The tax
But
point,
this way he can do it in a smarter way. Yeah. And I think that's one of the like that's the ultimate goal for so many people is to be completely free of the man. So yeah, so yes, that's really awesome, and it's good to know that can be in the longer term plan for people. So, and I think a lot of the clients that I have that come to me don't even know that that's even an opportunity for them. So if you put the plan in place, then you can make it happen. So
and
amazing.
that's, for him, he was sort of 4 years out from retirement. But we've got another guy who runs a trade business, um,
Hmm.
and his comment was, "I'm not very smart." And I said to him, "Listen,
Mm,
I don't like hearing that, because
yeah.
you're running a really good business. It is really profitable.
And you're a hard worker.
Not
Mm,
knowing about the stuff that I know doesn't mean you're not smart. It means that you
yes.
spend time in this area." but
Yeah.
this is the strategy that we're going to run. So he had a whole bunch, again, cash sitting in a bucket company because his accountant had done the right thing. And he wanted premises because he said, I get so sick and tired of my partner going, don't leave the tiles. You know, he runs a
Yeah.
trade. He's got
At home or whatever. Yeah.
all
Got
over
it.
the place. And he went,
Yeah.
I just want to buy my own premises. Didn't have quite enough in super. So we used some of the money in super. He effectively borrowed his super fund borrowed the money from his own company. He's there. I mean, he's got to pay the
Yeah.
mortgage back,
Yeah. It's got to pay
but
it back.
the two things together went and bought his first property, the commercial property. And even at the end of that, he went, man, I still don't get it. And we sat down and actually did the banking bit together. I went, okay, this
Yeah.
is that rent because
Yeah.
that's the bank, that's
Mm-hmm.
the owner of the premises. You're the business, so you pay rent, and then the mortgage. And he went, I literally watched. He went, here's my company, and I went, that's it. And
Yeah.
he's done two more of those because he went, this is it.
Yeah. Wow.
And he said, I can get my head around it. He said, I can drive past those commercial sheds and I can see three in a row now that are owned by me.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had to talk to
Mm-hmm.
him about diversification, but he went, I get that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand. So
Yeah.
that's really powerful. And he doesn't have to go to the bank. He doesn't ask for lending. He's literally got um, accountant, solicitor, who does the conveyancing as well, and me.
Mm-hmm.
We got
And you
about
work
three
it all
weeks
together.
ago. Yeah, so he sent us
Yeah.
a mail about 3 odd weeks ago and went, hey, I put a deposit on this place. Um, that made me twitchy, but because there's a couple of boxes to tick, as you know.
Yeah.
But he's now got that core group of people who he can go, I'm doing this thing. Can you just make it work in the background? But
Yeah.
it's in
Amazing.
a position where it's been really interesting. His mindset has shifted, and he's not going, "Oh, I'm done." He goes,
Mm.
I understand this now,
Yeah.
and it's
Amazing.
so lovely to see that shift in the confidence because in here he's going, "Oh, I get it. I'm doing some
Yeah.
stuff that actually is quite complex, but
Yeah.
I understand because it's now rinse and repeat." Cool,
Amazing.
pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And I think those are the pieces that make us love what we do. So for everybody that's not numbers people, we love it. So okay, so we're coming up to the time. We're coming up to the end of the time. Does anybody have any questions or queries that they want to like ask? We've got the money man here, so if you've got any questions that you would love to ask about, like where you are at your stage of the business, um, unmute yourself, introduce yourself, um, and ask away while we've got our money man. Oh, Suzanne, come on, do you have a question? I see you.
Oh. Hi.
Su- Hi, Suzanne.
Hello. Um, I've got a startup business
Mhm,
and it's got real potential. And I'm just wondering, and Jules has set us up really well. We've got a whole series of companies, like there's 4 companies, and each one's got 3 bank accounts at least, and various. I feel like we're well structured and set up. But as a startup, well, and also the other thing, and I have to say, Martin and I, mid late
your partner.
60s.
Yeah, your partner.
My
Hmm.
husband, partner, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, we're both divorcees, so we don't have a lot
Hmm.
um,
Yet.
there in the background. So, yes, yes, but how do you sort of set up a plan from the word go in this? Like how do like you've mentioned a whole lot of really great strategies here, but we can't participate in these at the moment. So how do how do you start?
So
I suppose that's it.
yeah, so my thoughts are that the business, I said at the beginning, it's sort of the ticket to the game. So the first piece is knowing that those strategies are out there. And it might be that some of those are never applicable, and that's okay. But it's knowing that when I get to this point here, there's some stuff that we can do.
Yeah.
And so that the starting point is focus on the business and making sure that it is as profitable as it can be. And then particularly when you're in that startup phase, the question and some of it, effectively I went through the same sort of frustrations, is the business would be profitable. And then the question was, do I take that money out of the business and use it for me? And my answer every single time was no. I'm going to put it back into the business to make it bigger and better. Because if I've got 10 grand profit, I can turn it into 20. If I've got 20, I can turn it into 50. So,
yeah.
But it's focusing on that business first and foremost, and making sure that it's this, that it's profitable, that it's looking after customers and clients, and also looking after you. And once the profit comes, then you can start to, rather than reinvest, you can start to look to take some out of it. But I think the core sort of function is the business piece first.
Okay.
But the get rich quick schemes are the ones that really stress me out. And sometimes we see it. Somebody will go, look, I've got X number of dollars. We did one for somebody. Effectively, she thought she had a wonderful idea, and it basically closed the business down because it was fortunately it was a Ponzi scheme. But if you can sort of provide great service and look after people and be profitable, and then that rinse and repeat, it's really powerful.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect.
I just had one other question. A very quick one that came up. I've got a feeling, is this Jono that looks after my daughter and son-in-law?
Yes, it is.
Yes, this is the Jono, the money man Jono. Yes. So the penny has dropped.
Yes. So then, one thing that did cross my mind, because I know they're always looking to invest, how would it sort of, you don't have to say too much of this, but it just crossed my mind that they could potentially buy us an industrial property to manufacture our gear in.
So the really important pieces is that in self-managed super fund world, what you can't do is use residential property with a related party.
Okay.
But commercial property you can, and the is that you can get a really good sense. There's not a lot of emotion when it comes to commercial property.
No.
So we know what a reasonable rent is. We know what the capitalization rate is, so we can work out with a fair degree of accuracy what the value of the property is. And if the property is bought for X number of dollars, we've got a fairly good read on what the rent should be. So it takes some of that uncertainty out. But yes, as long as it's done on an arm's length basis, they have to wear the hat of the super fund trustee, and they've got to get a good deal for themselves. But yes.
Well, I'm sort of thinking, because we're not in a position to do it ourselves yet, but they could definitely be in a position. But the other thing is they're also fairly minor shareholders in the company. Does that make a difference?
No, as long as it's on arm's length basis. So residential property is a hard no, but commercial property, absolutely.
Not an issue. Okay, something to run by them.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, does anybody else have a question before we wrap up? No? Is that a no, or is that a yes, Jason? No. Okay, well, I'm just going to share the final piece in case you want to see, learn more and join. Oh, I don't know where the thingy is, the present button. I think this might show the screen a little bit easier for everybody. If you are interested in having a meeting with Jono, you can use the QR code and jump on and book with him. So just I'll leave that for a little moment. And then otherwise, and then everybody that is left on here already has me in their world, so I don't need to share this is our QR code for Catalyst Plus if you want to have a chat with us. And yeah, so thank you so much, Jono. I really do appreciate you spending this time with us. And yeah, it's really, really amazing to have a chat with you as usual. So thank you everybody for joining us. Yep, and thank you for joining us. And yeah, like you should also receive the recording after our webinar, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jules. Thanks, John. I'll probably organise to come and catch up with you, organise a booking thing. So yeah, thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, chat with you all later.